demonization that is being portrayed through her music and her show. Now, I am not one of those people that sees a demon behind every single bush or every single incident or an artist. I understand a lot of these artists, they are spiritual but not religious. They're more of in new age. But we must understand we live in a day and age where Satan will use entertainers and he will use artists who will go to a certain level of fame, and then through that, he will spread his propaganda and begin to influence a young generation, even if it's just to desensitize them toward particular Christian values and standards.
And that includes legal and illegal, and also all forms of alchemy, which it is ultimately an extension thereof. So we can imagine a world that could be using magic spells, yes, but also seducing the people in terms of drugging them down in a way that prepares them to accept the new religion.
Whoa, too close to home.
Yeah.
On the 15th of May in the late afternoon, a press release was issued requesting the help of the public. Gardaí are seeking the public's help in tracing 14-year-old Anastasia Kriegel, who was last seen at her home in Leixlip, County Kildare, at 5 p.m. on Monday the 14th of May 2018. Anastasia is described as 5'8", black shoulder-length hair, sallow skin and slim build. Sergeant John Dunn. Both boys were from respectable backgrounds and there was no history of disturbing behaviour or difficulty in school, as one may expect to find in young offenders, especially ones who commit serious offences. Boyer's phone had also been taken away for analysis of part of the alleged assault investigation. What was found on it only pointed the finger further in his direction. A screenshot of a list of YouTube videos was found that included the 15 most gruesome torture methods in history, horror films that will blow everything away, and Until Dawn, Get Jessica's Clothes Off. Until Dawn appeared to be a reference to a popular horror video game. Also found was a widely shared short story focused around a teenage boy who murders his family called Jeff the Killer. Whilst this could have been explained away as simply a fascination with the dark and macabre, another find on the phone did little to dampen their suspicions. A search had been made for abandoned places in Lucan. On the evening of the 23rd of May, the parents of Boy A and the parents of Boy B were told that a warrant had been issued for their arrests and they would be required to bring them into the station the following morning. Officers didn't.
This rabbi here reveals the shocking and disturbing details about the evil that is going on in our culture and in our society today.
The first one's called the possessor. The second one is the enchantress, and the third one is called the destroyer. And this is where it goes, because when you start with it turning away, then you have it always happens this way: sexuality, all that. Then you get to the third one, which is the principality, by which they offered up their children. Parents offered their children as sacrifices. That was part of the pagan world. It was not safe to be a child in the pagan world. Children were abused, they were sexualized, and they were killed.
We live in a society that has aborted God. We live in a society that has decided to throw God away. Millions and millions of babies are being murdered in our world on a daily basis. This is a great evil in the sight of God.
For a second, and we'll come back to it. I just have an off-the-cuff random question. Vampires.
Yeah.
Did vampires come from the Nephilim? They real?
Well, vampires are real in the occult. Dracula is a more modern type of the literature that's going to hold the belief system and their history within it. So you have, Dracula, for example, as a son of a dragon. It goes back to Greek for drakont and drakonta, which means watcher, as in watcher angel.
Really?
Yes.
What the crap, man?
It's everywhere. People just don't recognize the links of it. And of course, the giants, both before and after the flood, and secret societies probably at the adept level even today, would drink blood. And they were drinking blood to extend their life after Genesis 6:3 shortened all lifespan to 120 years. And they also used it secondarily to provide additional cognitive abilities. And so they preyed on humans not only to eat them before the flood, but to drink their blood. And then after the flood, they had to do things a little bit more in secrecy, as they were needing humankind to survive because they had a fertility issue after the flood. And they required to not go extinct to intermarry. So they have to do a lot of this in secret, but blood rituals has been part of polytheism right from the beginning, and at the adept level still is. So now you have the drinking of the blood to try and give you that thing that they're seeking, is being a god in the physical world. They can't recreate godhood into the realm of heaven, but they can try and bring back the immortal Nephilim concept by having a body that's going to last forever, or replacement bodies to go with it, with that spirit for particularly the disembodied spirits that they're really trying to create these oikatarians for. Dwelling place for spirits was the definition of an oikatarian, so that they can rule the world going forward and live in the world going forward.
So were there quality levels to the types of blood? For example, if there was a lot of epinephrine or trauma in the blood, was it more valuable?
Unfortunately, there is a hierarchy to the preference of the blood. The more innocent, the better. So you can imagine some rituals from the past where virgins were murdered. But particularly, you take that all the way back to baby sacrifices, particularly which was common and the most brutal amongst the Baalim Council, in the Covenant land region, that they were practicing that, and that would be the most precious. And that they believe that they can absorb that spirit because they believe, and biblically, I don't believe that biblically they can do this, but biblically it says the life is in the blood. Right, so that's why they're trying to access to it.
Yeah, we could call him Molech, which actually means king, but they offered up their children. These are people who once knew God. They're offering up their children. So what it means is that as America goes and the West goes, it's going to start offering up its children. And that's exactly what happens. You have, when you get to the end of the 60s, 1970, we begin offering up our children in abortion. And you say, well, how do we compare that? Well, remember, Jesus said they come back worse. Israel offered up thousands of its children. We have offered up millions of our children.
Yeah.
Find a quiet space. Bring a mirror if you can. Just before taking the medication, gaze at your reflection and focus on your personhood. Hone in on your intent. Your responsibility is to you. So already, on slide 1, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're admitting that this is an egotistical and self-centered act where you are valuing your life over the life of somebody else who is more vulnerable and totally reliant upon you to keep them alive. A life that is totally innocent and has done nothing wrong except simply come into existence because of something that you did. And it's ironic when they talk about responsibility, your responsibility to you, when you are literally not taking responsibility for your actions and the life that your actions resulted in.
In our world, we're slaughtering between 50 and 60 million babies a year.
So how does a satanic abortion ceremony even work? They are celebrating it and admiring it. They literally made a whole Canva carousel post about it, teaching all of their followers exactly how to complete a satanic abortion ceremony.
It is ironic that those who pride themselves on defending the rights of the weak murder them in the womb when they are the most weak. What kind of hypocrisy is that? Self-congratulating pseudo-humanitarians advocate a deadly force of violence unleashed against infants that makes the Nazi Holocaust look mild by comparison.
Killing of babies is not a new thing in our society, for it has been prevalent during the times of the patriarch in the Bible. The children of Israel did detestable things in the sight of God, for they sacrificed, killed, and murdered their babies to the evil deity called Molech.
When you look at Jeremiah, he says, you're going to be judged, Israel, because of what you did to your children. Well, so what it's saying, and the warning of Jesus is,
blood drinking also has a significant meaning to them in terms of the matriarchal aspect and the relationship to the moon and the menstrual cycle and the blood thereof. And they call that starfire in the occult. Again, to do the same kinds of things, but for separate rituals. They are a blood cult, and they call that in the National Socialist regime the Vril, which was a Rosicrucian concept that goes back to before the flood, which is again showing another representation of secret society influence amongst National Socialists. and that they believed there was something special in the blood that if they could consume that, they could recreate again, in part, the superhumans or the demigods of ages past. So when we look at how blood fits into their ideology, it comes at the expense of humans.
So it's a corrupted, it's another counterfeit. It's a very evil counterfeit.
Yeah. There's another allegory that goes with it. It's from the matriarchal side. So the allegorical bloodline on the male side is the dragon bloodline or the raven bloodline. Dragon's the most common. On the female side, it's the fairy blood or the owl blood, and fairy being more common on the matriarchal side. Now, they have a process in the occult called the quickening, and they sort of take that from the Bible in terms of the KJV language. Created the giants to not only enslave humankind, but to wipe them from the face of the earth, which has been a common MO as that rolls forward after the flood with Israel, so that humankind will not reach their destiny. And so they get very close before the flood. Thus, the flood comes to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
But then it starts again after the flood.
Wake up. So now the little girls are put into the place of apes. It's not an accident. It's not incidental. It's central to the scene and to the message. The girls are as apes. In Kubrick's film, the apes represent the primitive. So in Barbie, girls who play with baby dolls are represented as primitive, unenlightened. In other words, motherhood is primitive. Women as mothers, mother and child, it's a primitive, unenlightened, negative state. Again, the doctrines of radical feminism. In Kubrick's movie, to answer the primitive state, an object appears, a monolith, an upright, rectangular stone slab. The apes are puzzled, disturbed, in awe. It's there to change them away from their primitiveness, their lowly state. So to answer the primitive state of women, as in motherhood, an object appears as a monolith, but it's Barbie. She stands above them as a colossal goddess or a towering idol of a goddess, and she's there to transform them from their primitive state, linked to motherhood. In 2001, the apes cautiously approach the object, touch it, and back away. In Barbie, one of the girls, or primitive ape people, cautiously approaches the object, just like the apes, touches the leg of Barbie, and backs away. In 2001, the effect of the object is to transform the ape away from primitiveness, apeness, into enlightened apes, and the enlightened apes use bones to kill other apes. But in Barbie, the effect is even more profound, because in Barbie, she winks at them, the girls are mesmerized and transformed by her spell. As the ape lifted up the bone to kill an animal or an ape, the one girl lifts up her baby doll that she's been caring for, and what does she do? She smashes the baby doll against another baby doll, and against the rocks, the head of the baby cracks open, explodes. You see the decapitated head of a baby against a rock, just as the ape smashed the bone into the head of a dead animal carcass. And so the baby's head is decapitated while another baby is smashed into it and onto the ground. And in every direction is an explosion of flying baby pieces. In 2001, the ape throws his stick into the air. So the girl then throws into the air, the sky, the baby, to transform it into the words Barbie. This is the opening of the movie Barbie. It's all there in the very first scene. All that you need to know about the movie, it's all there. It's all exposed. With all its sugarcoating and pink colors and smiles, this is the ultimate spirit behind the movie. And we're going to go even deeper. We're going to expose it with something even deeper. I'm going to come back to this scene at the end. Continually defied the authority of the patriarchy, and thus the war against the patriarchy. It was in the 1960s that America began intentionally removing God from its culture. Barbie was introduced into America just at that moment as the 1960s were about to begin. And it was in the 1960s that her popularity skyrocketed. Ishtar was the goddess of sexuality, and it was the 1960s in which came the sexual revolution. and in which also came the dramatic weakening and destruction of marriage.